Hey guys, Arvind here from Put the Player First. And in the next, I'm going to say about 45 minutes or so, I'm going to be teaching you everything that I know about the art of the DM. From time to time, I'm going to be looking straight at you through this little box on the side, right? And, this is how I look. So hi. And this is how I look with the logo. So hi there again. and, this is what I'm hoping to help you, kind of grok from my perspective about the art of the DM, right? So this is not the Dungeon Master. This is the art of direct messages. And if you want to get, access to this and ask a lot more questions, you should totally join me at Haven. It's the Discord server that I run for founders and I help them do marketing. Okay. So let's dive in and see how this stuff actually works out. All right. What we're going to be looking at is one, we're going to be looking at the fundamentals, right? Like what is the basic stuff that you need to know about sending direct messages, right? Next, I'm going to be sharing what I know about sending DMs. I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about value, and value is a weird word, right? A lot of people, a lot of different meanings for it, but I'm going to be breaking it down to you into like 4 distinct types of value that you can give anyone. And then ickiness be gone. I'm going to be talking about how you can actually send all of these DMs without feeling icky, I have like 7 different, what do you call that? 7 different tactics that you can use to, make it non-icky as much as possible. And then the action plan, right? So at Haven, which is a Discord server, I run these sort of weekly workshops. That's the intention, right? So every week we're going to be doing this, but you also have an assignment so that you actually implement all the stuff that you're actually learning. All right, so there's going to be an action plan that you can follow through on. And finally, I'm going to be giving you some tips, right? And these tips are not just for the action plan, but for the whole thing itself. All right, T, let's dive into the fundamentals, right? DMs, right? What are they? Well, basically, these are the messages you can send to someone directly, right? That's why they're called direct messages. They're usually private and they happen in a one-to-one setting. Contrast that to a platform like, let's say, Twitter or say LinkedIn, right? Where you're just posting content outside. Here, what you're doing is you are sending them a message in private one-on-one. And the reason why they're so important is because unlike the content that you're going to be posting out on the channel, right? DMs are a great way for you to build trust because you're having these one-on-one conversations. You can go deeper. And as a result, you can ascend the relationship that you have with someone, right? And the best way that I know of ascending a relationship to make that relationship stronger and take it to the next level comes from the friendship formula. This is something I picked up from a book. I can't remember. I think it was called The Like Switch. And what that's about is the friendship formula, right? And in the friendship formula, we talk about things like, essentially we're looking at these 4 things, right? To become a friend, what you need to do is you need to have an understanding of these 4 parameters, right? If you can increase each of these, what ends up happening is that the friendship that you have with someone becomes much, much stronger. Intensity refers to the intensity of the activity that you're going to be doing with that person, right? One-on-one conversations are inherently more intense than a public shit posting chatter, right? That you might be doing over there. So that's one thing. Overlap is the level of commonality that you have with the other person. When 2 people are engaged in a conversation, the more that they have in common, higher is the likelihood of them becoming friends. When it comes to the DMs, you have a great chance to explore this overlap and therefore make friends with people online. Then there's the duration, right? So the more time you spend with someone, the more likely you are to become friends with them, right? So similarly, when you're looking at a social platform, let's say Twitter, for example, individual interactions on tweets might be like a hi there and a hello there or something like that. And of course, you share the obligatory GIFs, which is the right way to say the word, and memes and whatnot. But in DMs, you can actually have conversations with people and you can, these things are a lot more memorable because it's going to be not just one tweet here that's like an asynchronous thing, but you can actually have like stronger relationships. And of course, frequency. Frequency is how often you interact with each other. Again, this can be bumped up with DMs because, well, you can have a lot more, you're not at the mercy of the algorithm, right? So you can obviously have a lot more conversations. But when it comes to DMs, a lot of people have a lot of fears, right? Now, before I go through that, I'm just going to check in on Discord. I can see Harsha is there. Hey, Harsha, nice to have you here as well. And on Twitter, do we have? Yes, we have a grand total of 0 viewers, which is not a problem at all. Anytime, Harsha, if you have any questions, just drop it in the chat, and I'll be more than happy to answer that for you. Now, coming back, talking about fundamentals, right? And fears, especially. A lot of people have a lot of mental hangups about sending DMs. And believe me, I've had them too, right? And this is what I could best summarize these things at. People are afraid of rejection. They're like, I sent a DM. They're like, oh, they laughed at me. And they just went away, right? Now, that's a very, very strong fear of rejection. There's something worse, which is being ignored. Like you send out like a bazillion messages and nothing happens, right? Like just absolute crickets. That's not a fun place to be either. Some people also feel bad that, hey, you know, this is gonna be so creepy. Well, that was creepy. Never ever said a DM like that. But again, our fears are often irrational, and we feel that, hey, whenever we're sending out a DM, because of what else the recipient has received in the past, this is going to feel very, very creepy due to some misunderstanding or perceived privacy lapses, if you will. Of course, people worry about blowback as well. Like, oh, what if I do this and it blows up on my face? And the odds of that happening are infinitesimal. They're not zero, mind you that, but very, very tiny. And of course, the biggest pet peeve is, oh, I don't have time for this. Isn't there some, like this literally happened, I think it was what, yesterday or day before, I can't remember, time's a blur. There was this one guy I was helping out and he's like, isn't there some way that I could just get like software to do this for me? Yes, there is. And we're going to be talking a little bit about that later. But this essentially is the introduction to what DMs are, why they're important, and what are the biggest hangups that people have, right? And the way to fix this is what I'm going to be talking about in the next section, which is how to actually do DMs right. Again, quick interlude to check in on our 0 viewers, which is very cool. And we have some viewers in the workshop channel as well. Awesome. All right, no questions. So moving on. How do you do DMs the right way? Well, it's pretty simple, right? As long as you keep these key goals in mind, you're going to be absolutely golden. Genuine relationships, finding common ground, active listening, responding to feedback, leave value, leave it value. I'm going to unpack each one of these. Look, I've done this in the past where I've just blitzed out like a bazillion DMs to a bazillion people back before the API changes and even afterwards, right? I don't shy away from grunt work. And in that situation, what's happened is I've had like situations where I've sent out like about 150, maybe 200 odd video DMs. Like I would record videos and send them out like 200 people. So much so that Twitter's like, whoa, hold on, Bob. Right? They've asked me to slow down and stuff like that. But one of the things that's worked really well for me is focusing on building a genuine relationship. It is super duper amazing when you have like that, 10K followers and 300,000 followers. It's nice, it feels fancy. You can definitely, show off with all of that. But I've got friends who could, have my back when it's go time, right? I have friends I can rely on for help. I have friends who I might not necessarily sell anything to, but I can ask them for help whenever I need to. I have these genuine relationships that are coming up, and in my opinion, that is the key goal of interacting on any social network. It's not about, hey, can I get the sale? Don't get me wrong. Asking for a sale, trying to sell things, that is absolutely okay, provided you do it the right way. But if you're just going to be like, hey, you want to buy this super duper product that I have for sale? That is absolutely not the right way to do this, right? And the reason it's not the right way is in that approach, you are sacrificing, what are you sacrificing? You are sacrificing a couple of things. Well, one, an opportunity to build up a good, valuable relationship. Two, your probability of success when you just in it for the sale is going to be like massively lower. Three, it can go ahead and ruin your reputation because people talk, man, right? So there's no point in just saying, oh, you know what, it's okay, I'll get by with it. It doesn't work like that. It does not work like that. Well, so focus on building genuine relationships, right? Second is about common ground. One of the key tenets, one of the key main important rules of sales is don't sell it to someone who won't benefit from it, right? I mean, it's very tempting. You could get someone to FOMO into buying something. You could get someone to go ahead and, you could do like a hard sales tactic. If you buy it in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to be giving you over $400 off. That kind of bullshit, right? It's not going to work for you, because in the long run you will tap out that latent desire that's there, and you will burn up any sort of goodwill that you have left with them. Instead, if you go about and try to find that, hey, is there a common ground, right? Is there a way that I can help you? Is there a way that you can help me, vice versa, right? Is there a way that you can engineer this exchange of value? That's going to be super duper awesome. Also, remember, since you are committing to, or since you are approaching it with the intent of building a genuine relationship, what ends up happening is that even if you don't have like any sort of like a sales motive or something behind it, right? You're still tapping into this, right? So this overlap is the same thing as finding common ground, right? The moment you find common ground, it's much easier to make a sale. And even if you don't end up making the sale, you got a friend, and that's pretty awesome. I know friends can't necessarily, like put food on the table or something. Well, sometimes, most of the times, whatever. But what does end up happening is they can definitely open up new opportunities, right? And that's something that I swear by. Next up, when you're doing DMs, active listening as a concept, right, is a very important skill to deploy. And what that means is when someone's saying something, you don't want to just run through a script. That is not the point. The point is you want to read what they're saying, you want to internalize it, right? You want to understand it, and then you want to respond to it. Not just say like, oh, okay, they said this, they did this. Look, I goof up here a lot of times, all right? Partly because, well, I have ADHD and I'm like, oh, I want to have pathetic control over my impulses. But that being said, if you can grok, if you can really understand what the other person's saying, you can read between the lines, as they would say, right? And that really, really helps you when it comes to figuring out, oh, okay, how can you actually respond to them and understanding them, which again leads you to find common ground and helps you build genuine relationships as well. Similarly, responding to feedback, right? That's a pretty important thing. When somebody's saying something, you don't have to take it personally. Well, yes, they are sending the message to you, but you got to, and this is a hard thing also, mind you, right? I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but it's about separating the message from the messenger. Whatever somebody's saying, right? You got to take it with, okay, this is the message. And then it's not necessary that you have to accept it, but you do have to process it, right? So that you understand that, oh, okay, excuse me. You have to process it and see whether you want to apply this or you want to action on this or something, right? If not, it's okay to let it go, but don't just just dump out all of this, right? Because if you're going to be doing DMs, right, you definitely want to acknowledge what the other person's saying and build on that. These two statements, leave value and leave with value, are very important, right? So leave value, again, we're going to be talking about this in the next section. We're talking about the art of value. What ends up happening is in any sort of an interaction, any sort of an engagement that you have, right? It could be in the DMs, it could be elsewhere in like a conversation or something. If you can leave the other person with more value than what they came into the interaction with, you've won, right? Yes, this is a game, but it's not a zero-sum game. But you win this game by giving the other person more value than you're taking out of it, right? And even if it's just a DM, right, you could give them value in a variety of different ways. So you can always look, and I'll unpack what those are in the next section, right? But the key idea here is that every interaction, you got to leave value on the table, right? You got to give value to the other person. That also leads us to a very interesting hack that I've discovered, right? Which is to leave with value, especially when I was like struggling and I was like feeling bad and I was feeling shy and I was feeling awkward to ask people for money or something like that, right? Because if I'm trying to sell via DMs, it's challenging. It's by no means easy, right? Because we have a lot of our limiting beliefs, we have a lot of our ideas, we have a lot of our things that are just absolutely wonky, that's messing with our head. But the moment we we adopt this mental framework that, hey, I'm going to be leaving with value from this conversation, right? Or this interaction, what ends up happening is that you start looking at this DM, right? This conversation that you're having in the DMs in a very, very different way, right? What you're going to be doing is you're going to be like, what can I get out of this, right? But not like, oh, can I just sell something? But more like, what is the thing that this other person has that I can learn from, that I can adapt, right? So it's kind of like this. I don't know if you've ever seen SWAT cats. There were these two metallic cats. Metallic cats. They were called the metallic cats, and they built this robot which would just like assimilate anything it touches until it became this like massive gargantuan beast that could like destroy the whole city. But the moment it touched something, it got absorbed and it did that, right? I want you to do the same thing with every single person you meet, right? When you see someone, what is the thing that you can take from them and internalize as a part of yourself to make yourself better? I'll give you a couple of examples, right? These are real people on Twitter that I've learned things from. Sean, I think his Twitter handle is Sean Does Life. Oh God, I'm terribly sorry if I goofed that up. He's got a fantastic way of sharing his mind without worrying about what others might think. He's opinionated. I really like that about him. We have Morris, the Morris Grant, I believe his Twitter account is. He's got like this absolute genuine warmth, and it's like you see him, you just want to be his best friend. He gives those kind of vibes, and I think that's like really, really cool. Another person is Kevon, right? When you look at Kevon, you see that, okay, that guy, he knows what he's talking about. He's very approachable, very friendly. And for some reason, I always imagine him wearing black shoes and white sneakers. Maybe that's something to do with me. But you see, like just by interacting with these people, right? I've gotten some things out of them. From Sean, it's about how do I, be opinionated and share my thoughts. From Morris, it's about how to be more approachable and how to be more kind. From Kevon, it's about how do I share and how do I actually build in public. These are all things that I've taken from them and made it part of me. Next time you have a DM conversation, that's what I want you to do. All right. I'm just going to quickly check in and see if there are any questions. Hallelujah. We have a viewer. I don't know who you are, but please do let me know who you are, and I will thank you profusely. So thank you for that. I just hope it's not me. We still have Harsha, and I'm just wondering if there are any other questions. Oh, okay. No questions yet. It seems to be going absolutely fine. This is interesting. Oops. I think that my browser window just peeped in. Let's see. Let's see if I can get any more data from this. No. Holy cow. There are actually 25. How do I stop this? Okay. 25 views. Not bad. Let's do this. All right. So far, what have we done? Well, we've looked at the fundamentals. And we're going to be closing that for now. And then we looked at how can we actually do DMs right? And at the end of it, I spoke about the concept of value, right? And that's what I want to unpack. In fact, for one of my coaching clients, right, just last week we were talking about the different kinds of value, right? And the reason was that I had recommended that they approach their raise the dead email sequence. It's one of the email sequences that I was helping them write. I recommended that you take like a certain approach, whereas that person, they were not comfortable doing that because they're like, hey, wait a second, this doesn't feel like me. It doesn't the vibe wasn't right. So that's what led to the discussion on value. That's what I'm going to be sharing with you. So art of value. The reason we're talking about this is because we want to give value in DMs, right? So I spoke about leaving value before, and that bit's important. And let's look at how you can actually give that value in DMs. So the way I see it, there are 4 kinds of value: educational, inspirational, entertainment, and sales. Yes, sales is a form of value, right? One of the biggest mental blocks, and I want to address this one first because there's like the brontosaurus in the room. The thing is that most founders I know, they feel, I can't sell my stuff. How could I possibly ask them for money? No, I could not. Well, the reason is that they're not comfortable enough to ask for money because of a couple of reasons. Number one, they don't believe in the product that they've got, right? They feel that there's inherently, they are unworthy, right? That's the whole imposter syndrome or whatever passes for that, right? So that's one thing. Another thing is that they've been exposed to so much of crappy marketing. Like I could open up my Twitter DMs and I could show you like a bunch of these DMs like, hey, I am selling ghostwriting services. Would you like to buy my ghostwriting services? And then they ghost me. So that shit, right? That just doesn't fly. So we don't want to do that, right? So that's another thing. And when we're exposed to this sort of like yucky, icky ineffective forms of marketing, right? That really messes with us. The third one is because of people like me. Hold on, hold on. Let me get the bazooka and shoot myself in the foot. What I mean by this is very, very simple. There are a variety of different people who are probably ahead of you in terms of their marketing journeys, in terms of their business building journeys, right? And definitely there are people way more ahead of me. I'm ahead of many other people. That's how it is, right? It's always a continuum, a spectrum, if you will. What ends up happening is that different people, once they have a certain level of success, they say like, "Oh, you shouldn't do it that way. You should do it this way." I am doing that in this conversation. I literally have a segment called "Doing DMs Right." Right? It is highly possible that there is somebody else who does the exact opposite of all of this stuff and is still minting money. What I'm trying to say is like, "Hey, this is how I recommend that you do it, and therefore I'm going to be pushing this because this is my agenda." Right? Everybody else who speaks to you, who interacts with you, who you learn from, has their own agenda as well, right? So what you got to do is you got to be absolutely clear that, hey, when it comes to sales, you know what you're doing and you have chosen to do it because you've thought through it, right? You're not merely parroting what your your mentor, your guide, your guru, whoever they are, what they've taught you, right? So if you get that confidence, but yeah, sales is about giving value, because what ends up happening is that you're giving them a product, an offer, right? Something that has inherent value because it solves a specific problem, right, for your hero. And in exchange for that, they're giving you money, right? It's not that money is more valuable than your time or your resources or your product. The value exchange that's happening is you are solving something for them, you're doing something for them, and therefore they're paying you money. And money is just a way to store some value. I could be wrong. And before the crypto bros and the economists come after me, I'm going to move on to the next one. Entertainment. Entertainment is a great way to, give value. And I've been told, that's how old I am. I got married at the young age of 24. In India, that was the running joke that I was still participating in child marriage. And what ended up happening was I never got to use the apps like Tinder and Hinge and Bumble and whatever Bubble. Shit, this gives like Bubble developers a whole new meaning. Anyways, all of these things, right? But apparently in these applications, you have to impress your potential suitor by being funny and doing entertainment. I mean, I tried that in like other ways when you're posting memes and engaging in 9gag, Captain reporting for duty. Actually, Field Marshal, but still, hey, who's keeping track, right? Same thing happens in Reddit too, right? Like everything's about entertainment, and it's one way of definitely packaging value. If you look at stand-up comics, this is what they do. Podcasters, most of them, they do this. People who use different media, like influencers, they're all focused. Most of them are focused on entertainment, right? That's again a specific set of value. Now, inspirational is great. This is the one that I was most familiar with when I was in like Toastmasters and whatnot. You help people change the way they look at the world. You help them take action by getting them all pumped up. This is what Jocko Willing does, and there are a whole bunch of these inspirational videos that you can go check out on YouTube. So that's another way of packaging value. But the value definition that most of us are familiar with and comfortable with is that of education, where we're teaching people something, right? And that usually comes into three things: how to do something, what you got to do, and why you got to do something, right? And as you can see, there's a level of concreteness versus abstractness that's happening. Educational stuff is extremely concrete, right? Like you can say like, oh, this is what we're used to in terms of value because we spent so many years in school, right? Inspirational is the stuff that we see on TV and like religion and stuff like that, right? So they motivate us to do things using different levers. And entertainment, I mean, that's what fuels the modern internet nowadays, right? So these are the different ways of giving value, right? Now, when you get into the DMs, and that's how the kids call it these days, when you get into the DMs, you want to give value, right? And depending on how and what you're selling and how you have approached the conversation and what is the relationship that you have with someone, you can choose to give different kinds of value, right? I would recommend that you save the sales bit for later, and I'll explain why. But any of these are absolutely fantastic ways to give value. I prefer to teach. That's why I'm doing these kind of workshops. I also like to make funny voices, so I might just do an entire segment in this sort of a voice just to say that, hey, this video and this workshop also has entertainment value. But you can do it. All right, so I'm going to move on from this, but these are the different ways that you can actually give value, right? So from the other person's perspective, from the recipient's perspective, figure out how you can actually give value. Then comes down to building trust and credibility, right? The more value you give before, the other person responds or before you make an ask, you're building up your trust and your credibility. If you don't jump to like weird topics or something, as long as you still maintain that overlap, as long as you still maintain that, hey, this is why we're having that conversation, and this is why, we should be having this conversation, you'll be able to build up your trust and credibility. That being said, you got to understand that in the DMs and pretty much in any relationship as well, there's a lot of goodwill trading that's happening, right? So all the stuff that you're giving in terms of value, think of it as being deposited into like some sort of a bank account. Okay. Every single time you're doing this, you're just like putting money into the account. Actually, you're putting value. You're just putting in that value. You're earning that goodwill, right? When that happens, eventually one day you can ask for a withdrawal of that goodwill, right? It's a mental model, but it works, right? And when you're doing this, you're depositing this goodwill. And when you're in the DMs, it's easy for you to deliver a lot of goodwill very, very quickly. And then finally, when the time is right, you can extract goodwill by asking for a sale, asking to be entertained. I guess that's a possibility. Asking them how they did something and then learning something, or I don't know how you'd get inspirational value, but maybe like a one-on-one chat with somebody you admire could be great for motivation and mindset as well, right? So you got to remember that it's like an exchange of goodwill that's happening. What I like to think of is like just keep on depositing this value till finally make them an offer they can't refuse. Yeah. I hope it sounded like Al Pacino. Oh no, what was the guy's name? Marlon Brando. But sure, you get into Godfather mode and you make them an offer that they can't refuse. All right, so this is how value works. You keep on giving value in the DMs. You can give it in one of these 4 ways. You use value to build trust and credibility. And when you do this, you're depositing goodwill, which you can eventually withdraw in one of these 4 forms of value. And you usually do that by making them a Godfather style ask. All right, I'm just going to quickly check in to see if we have any more questions or anything else that's popped up. Doesn't look like it. All right, no questions. Either I'm absolutely amazing or my audio is completely cut off. I am curious what is happening on Twitter. Are we still at 25 views? No, we have gone up to 27. Not bad at all. All right, let's move ahead. We are closing in on the end of the workshop. We just got like icky be gone. And this part, I'm going to be talking to you about the different things that you can do so that you can send DMs without feeling icky, without feeling, I don't want to send this, right? So that's there. And then I'm going to be giving you an action plan that you can use to go ahead and start sending awesome DMs. Of course, and we'll wrap it up with some tips. Okie dokie, ickiness. Why does this actually come up, right? We all have inherent reservations against sending DMs, right? Because we're not used to this. And, I've gone into this a little bit because of these inherent fears. We don't want to send out these DMs, right? Again, I'm just clubbing all of these things together as ickiness. Now, if I have to fix that, this is what I would recommend. If you don't engage in spammy behavior, you are not going to feel icky, right? Now, the definition of spammy is very different. Like what I might be okay with versus what you might be okay with will change. What I was okay with a month ago versus what I'm okay with right now, that changes as well, right? So this is not like, of course, there are laws in place in various countries around the world to define what is spam, but there is nothing stopping you from living by your own code of honor, if you will, right? If you're okay with something and it doesn't break the law, go for it, right? There's nothing wrong with that. So if you want to avoid ickiness, don't do stuff that you find spammy, right? And if you feel that the mere act of sending a DM itself is bad, then this workshop's not for you. I'm sorry, I should probably led with that like about 30 minutes ago when I started, right? Okay, that said, respecting boundaries, right? You can think of sending a DM as walking up to someone in, I don't know, where do people walk up to others nowadays? A bar? I've never done that in a bar, at least not while sober. It could be at a house party, right? I think that might be the best way to explain this. Sending a DM is like walking up to them and trying to start a conversation. And if you're not, what's the word, foisting, thrusting, imposing yourself upon others, you're okay, right? That's not a problem at all because people still have an option to just say no. And it's about respecting boundaries, right? If someone says, like, "Hey, don't DM me again," you stick to that. Do not send them another DM. It's as simple as that. Of course, there are a lot of parallels to be had in terms of handling rejection, right? We have a massive, massive fear of rejection, and that's not fun. That's not fun at all, right? So there are different ways that we can handle that, and that's beyond the scope of this. But if you wanted to dive more into this, there's a TED Talk. I think it's called Rejection Therapy, or maybe it's a website, right? About some guy, I don't remember the name, unfortunately, who went around on purpose asking different people absurd things, like asking for a discount at a McDonald's, right? That sort of a thing, just so that they would get comfortable with getting rejected, right? I've done stuff like that, and it really, really works, right? Now, that being said, if you have a way, like if you're mentally prepared, like think like you're like Sheldon Cooper and he had like an algorithm for friendship. If you have an algorithm in your head on how to navigate the situation, like, hey, if this happens, then I will do this, and then if this happens, then I'll do that, right? If you can plan that out, let's say like 2 levels deep, you're pretty good because you know that, hey, if they say this, then this is how I can gracefully exit from the conversation, and then if they do this, then this is how I shall gracefully exit from the conversation. Because the key idea behind handling rejection is, how do you protect your ego, right? How do you still keep your status in your own head high enough that you don't feel extremely mortified, right? So you don't want to do that. The best way to do that is to stay true to yourself. This is not easy, right? If you're not someone who is inherently extroverted, if you're not someone who is comfortable in reaching out and being the first person to start a conversation, this stuff is hard. This is definitely hard. But as long as in the conversation you're still staying true to yourself, right? If you're not putting on a fancy accent and typing out in all caps the whole time, you should be okay as long as you're still staying true to yourself, right? This is slightly harder because it does definitely get like a little bit more philosophical. But the bottom line is this, right? If it is something that you would not be comfortable doing in person or in a safe and secure environment, don't do it on DMs, right? That's what I'm trying to say. The mental hack that I have found to be like, and these three are going to be like really, really awesome. Is just to get into like a different mode, right? This ickiness comes in because we spoke about the imposter syndrome and stuff like that. But here, that's because you're in like selling mode, right? But what if you went into the seeker mode? I'm not talking like, what was that, Harry Potter, Quidditch, that sort of a thing. That is pretty dope if you could do that. But what I'm trying to say, sorry, I was just imagining me flying on a broomstick, and yeah, that'd be pretty dope. Anyways, instead of trying to sell something, right? If you are in the seeker mode, where you're just trying to get to know the other person, right? It's where you're trying to do like a user research interview, if you will, and you just want to understand more and more about the other person's life. Then there is nothing to get rejected by, right? Like, because you are expressing interest in getting to know the other person better. And if they say no, okay. If they say yes, cool. You get to know them better, right? So that's that mental thing where your objective behind the conversation or behind the DM is not to sell something, but to understand the other person. Like, you seek to understand. That just opens up a whole world of stuff, right? Because then it's like, there was this one conversation, like Eitan. I hope I got your name right. I'm so sorry, mate. I hope you're okay. Cool idea on Twitter, right? He and I, like, the first time we spoke, I was just like listening, right? I must have probably said like maybe 50, 60 words, despite how much I'm talking right now. And then at the end of it, he's like, hey, you know what? We didn't get time to talk, so maybe we should talk again. I'm like, yes, please. So yeah, that kind of stuff happens, right? So being to seeker mode is really, really awesome. Alex Hormozy, he's got like this one very, very weird trick that he spoke about in, what was that thing? 100 million leads. Let's say you do want to pitch, okay? And you're not comfortable enough to ask them for the sale, right? Like you don't want to go ask them, hey, would you like to buy this? You just do his trick. And this weird trick is you ask them, do you know somebody who would like, and then you describe whatever you're selling, right? You're not selling it to them. You're asking for a referral, right? You're asking them, hey, this offer sounds like it's perfect for you, but I'm not going to be selling it to you. I want you to tell me who else I could sell it to. Most of the time, you're going to be ending up in a situation where they'll be like, oh, wait a second, I want this, right? And the moment I heard that, and I was talking with Sanat, H_Sanat, I think his Twitter handle is. And I was like, oh, wow, that's like insane, right? I'm like, oh, that's like so cool. So I would recommend that you try that as well. If you're not comfortable selling, okay, you're not selling, you're just asking for a recommendation or referral. Absolutely A-okay. All right, so that was Alex Hormozy's one weird trick. And now my friendship technique. If you're wondering why I've written friendship like that, it's some sort of a weird meme in India. So why not? Well, my technique is this. I make videos where I'm just looking at the camera and I'm talking to them, telling, hey, I'm Arvind and blah, 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 blah. And I introduce myself. And then so yeah, it's a video which I record using Komodo decks, and I introduce myself. I tell them like, hey, I noticed this about you, so I wanted to reach out because, and this is the kicker thing, okay? Well, because I'm 38 and it's very hard for me to make friends because I'm stuck at home. So I thought I will reach out to you because I would like to be your friend. So could you please reply to this video with another video of yourself or answer this question? Where do you feel local, for example, right? So I have a bunch of questions like that. That's it. I would make these sort of videos and I would just like send them out on DMs. Last month or the month before, I can't remember. I must have sent out like about 250, maybe 300 odd DMs just like that. I made like individual videos on Komodo decks and I just sent them out to people. I made like 40 new friends, 40, 45 new friends. That's insane. Yes, it's horrible in terms of scaling. It's horrible in terms of ROI. But is it? I made 40 new friends. Like that's ridiculous. Wow. So you could try that. The gist is you introduce yourself and you tell them why you reached out to someone, why you reached out to them, and then you give them a way to continue the conversation. That's it. You do this, you won't get as many replies, but the fact that you've given videos, and that's going to pop up in the tips as well, it's going to stand out, and then you're going to be having some conversation started. Okay. Those are the different techniques that I have for how you can reduce ickiness. Before I move on to the action plan, I am going to check in for any questions. Bada bing, bada boom, ba, 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 ba. Okay, I got nothing on this. What about disco? Oopsie. All right. We are okay over there as well. Not bad, not bad. All right. For the penultimate thing. Now, everything that you've learned in this workshop so far, the art of the DM, if you wanted to go ahead and implement it, boom, that's what the action plan's for. Okay, this is what I want you to do. Okay, after you finish watching this video, or if you're live after this workshop, make a list of people that you're going to be DMing, right? That you want to reach out to. You want to filter them in some way, and I'm going to be expanding all of this. All right, and then you want to do the groundwork so that you get to know them better. You make the message, you send the message, and then you continue the conversation. All right. So let's find out how you can actually make a list of people that you can reach out to. The way you do that is you look at the people who have interacted with your content, right? So you already have like some sort of a common ground with them. So you have like some basis starting point. Or you look at people who have the same interests as you. Or you look at new members of your community. Like I run a Discord server. I run a Discord server called Haven. And I made it my mission like before end of next week. All the, how many do we have right now? What? All the 40 people that we have, 38 without me. Yeah, 38 without me and the bots. I will be making intro videos for every single one of them, saying welcome, blah 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 blah. Right. So that's one thing. You can do this for people who joined your email list. You can do it for your new followers on Twitter. I've done that too. And if you're still really stuck, but you want to be like more business focused, you can look at other people who are solving the same problem for your audience, and the people that the people who follow your competition for whatever the competition's offering is also a great way for you to find people that you can reach out to, right? Because hey, if they're interested in marketing it with one person, it's possible that they're interested in marketing with me as well, right? So that's the idea. So you make a list, okay? I'll see if I can actually dig it out. Yeah, so this should pop up, right? So this is what I had done. All of these people, I had made videos and I had sent them out. Yes, all of these were video DMs. And then after a while, I got lazy and I didn't start like recording them. But the point is this, right? So you can make these sort of list of people and you do that. Next, you got to filter them, right? Do they match your definition of the hero? Well, if you're watching this, I have a framework called Put the Player First, where I transform business building. I reframe business building as a fantasy adventure that, there's an entire video on this and you can check it out on the channel. But the point is, does it match your hero definition? Like the people that you want to reach out to, are these the people that you want to get in touch with? And do you like their vibe? There might be people who might match. They might have the money. They might have the problem, right? They're looking for a solution. But if they're complete yucky people and you don't like their vibe, you don't want to work with them. So don't even bother reaching out. All right. That said, once you got the filtered list, you want to do groundwork for each one of those people. All right. And you know what? Actually, I think I'm going to be doing this in real time. All right. So let's see if we can get that. Okay. So that's evidently not working. All right. So let's say that I want to send a chat to Amir, right? Hi, Amir, if you're watching. I missed meeting you when you were in Bangalore. Sorry. All right. So I'm going to click on that. Let's say that he's passed the filter and he's the kind of person that I want to reach out to. Does he match my hero definition? Yeah, absolutely. Do I like their vibe? Absolutely. I do that too. All right. So then groundwork is basically me going through their profile and trying to figure out what is the stuff that I have that I can use as a conversation starter, right? So what I would do is, well, if I hadn't known Amir from before, I would have, interacted with a bunch of their content, right? Now, for example, look at that. He's talking about what dropped in DALL-E 3, right? So I'll give an example, right? So I could engage with his content, like I could give him a like or whatever, and then I could support him. And I could say, and a way to support that is by saying, this looks dope. I can't wait to try this in SD2. Okay. ST stable diffusion, by the way. And then uplift. Now, let's say if there was something that I wanted to, what do I say? If I wanted to give him more visibility or traction or something, I could retweet something. Then hey, that's something that I could do. I could retweet his stuff and whatnot, right? So that's what I mean by engage, which is interact with their stuff, support them, comment or give them help, if they have some questions. And then there's uplift, right? Where uplift would mean that I give them a boost. Then I'm going to craft a message, right? There are two kinds of DMs, right? I just want to distinguish between that. One is the relationship DM, where you're trying to build friendship, as I mentioned. And the other one is when you're trying to do sales, right? For relationships, it's pretty straightforward. You want to have this sort of a structure. And I am going to, yeah, all right. So this is for Amir, by the way, right? So relationship DM. So it's about personalization, intro, and ask. Okay, so the way I would do this, right, assuming that Amir wasn't a friend of mine, I would say, hey, Amir, saw your post about DALL-E, nope, DALLE 3 in chat GPT. That's so dope. Reminds me of, what does it remind me of? It reminds me of how hyped up I was for Midjourney. Also, reminds me that I'm gonna, nope, not reminds me. I never bought it because I'm more into SD. In fact, I'm doing a workshop. I'm attending a workshop All right. Now that's it. So this was the first part of it, right? This was the personalization. So if this is the first message you're sending, you probably don't want such a long-winded intro, right? So maybe like 2 sentences, right? So that should be okay. 2 or 3 sentences, that's enough. And then I would, drop in my bio. So this is my full-fledged bio, but obviously I wouldn't be using the whole thing. So the intro is, I saw that you're a startup navigator. Now, I got this info when I looked at his profile, right? So it says startup navigator. So you're startup navigator. Does that mean that you're into marketing? Because that's what I do, right? So now what I've done is, oops, I've done the intro of myself and ask, like I've given them something to respond to keep the conversation going forward, right? I could make it more explicit thing. Also, do you prefer DALL-E 3 over Journey or SD? So now that's another conversation starter, right? So that's what I have done. By using all the stuff that Amir has on his profile, I have used personalization. And then I have done, given my intro. So this was the personalization bit. This is this is a very brief intro. And then you can make an ask, like something like this. This is how a relationship DM could be structured. Now, similarly, when you're looking at sales DM, all right, so let's try the same thing. So I'm just going to copy this, paste that back in. So now let's say if I wanted to sell Amir my services as a coach, as a marketing guy, right? So I would probably, so this is the personalization part, right? I'm going to keep this part, but what I'm going to do is, I'm going to be talking about the problem. So I want to segue from this to the problem, right? I know many founders who spend a lot of time in crafting the right picture when they should be focusing on their messaging. What do you think? So the idea behind this is you're not going to be in the sales DM. You don't want to straight off start selling, right? You want to kind of lead into it, right? So you're going to be offering that personalization, which is still there. And then you're setting the context by defining the problem, right? And then you're like, oh, okay, this is going to start off the conversation. Further down the conversation, then you can say, you carry the conversation forward. And then you give, okay, this is what I do. And we get on a call to discuss, right? So, or something to that effect. The idea here, though, is pretty simple. What you're trying to do is you're trying to first go through the same process of show that you put in the work to know them, set the problem that you're going to be solving about, and then make a pitch, okay? This is perhaps one of the hardest things that you'd have to do, but you don't have to fret too much because the more shots you take, the more number of DMs that you send, more chances you get of fixing this message, okay? Then you send the message, and then you have the conversation. Best way to keep a conversation going is to ask open-ended questions, right? So, for example, in this, what do you think about that? That's an open-ended question. Any open-ended question is something that cannot be answered with a yes or a no, right? And same thing with this. Do you prefer DALL-E over Midjourney or SD, right? Again, it can't be a yes or a no sort of a thing, right? This is, does that mean you're into marketing? Yes, no. But this is an open-ended question, okay? Then once you send that, right, eventually your conversation is going to peter out. So you're going to check in every X days. I struggle with this. So I normally do this like every, what do I say? 2-3 weeks, maybe a month, maybe never. The ideal though, I try to hit like the people that I want to stay in touch with and people that I can remember thanks to the algorithm every month or so, or every 3 months, right? So that's the thing that I'm going for. And whenever possible, I try to help them, right? Like if I find something that could be useful, or if I can, find a way to tag them in a conversation, I do that because every single bit is continuing the conversation, Okay. So this is what I want you to do as well. If you want to be doing this challenge, number one, make a list of people you want to DM, filter them out to match them, to see if they're a right fit for you. Do the groundwork to understand them, put in that effort so that you pop up on their radar, so to speak. You craft a message, which can be a relationship building DM or a sales DM. Then you send that message and then continue having that conversation, right? And if you want to get into like details, like more details about what this is, drop into Haven. That's a Discord server that you can get to at puttheplayerfirst.com/Haven. And you can find me there and I'll be happy to help you out. Okay. That said, the final section, that is the tips, but I just want to make sure, I'm just going to check in very quickly into, we have, let's say Twitter. Do we have anything on Twitter? Nothing on that front. Let's see if there's anything on Discord. I'm pretty sure I'm goofing up something because the first time streaming to Twitter, I've never done that before. I don't even know how this is going to work. Let's just hope it does. Okay, so that's all right. Final section, some tips that are going to be helping you. Number one, do uncommon things for uncommon results. If you're sending video DMs, you have a much higher likelihood of getting a response because most of the people don't do that. The reason they don't do that is because it requires effort. But putting in effort shows that you care, right? You can do that by videos. You can do this with personalized content, right? Like you can say in the video itself, if you say like, hey, Amir, or hey, Harsha, instead of, hey, man, and then, you can just send out that generic video. That's okay. People can see through that. But then when the person's name is a part of that video, and you haven't clearly used AI to do this, like, hey, Amir, how are you? Like, as long as it's not noticeable, that's going to be like super duper useful for you. And finally, and this is something that I've often deployed to great effect. In fact, I've got like 2 clients this way, and that is like my put the player first framework, right? It's got like some thinking to do and whatnot. I've done this work for free. Like I've done pro bono work and used that as a sales pitch, right? So I have like gone through this process and I've told them like, hey, I did this for you, no charge. If you like this, go ahead and take a look, and I'd be happy to chat with you later. Many times it didn't pan out, but that's got like a 20% conversion rate. So I'm not knocking it at all. So you could try that as well. Next, desperation. It's very, very hard to not be desperate and accept whatever comes your way when you don't have any money, right? I have been there. But now that I'm ramen profitable, it's much easier for me to say this because at that time I was desperate. My coaching packages, they now sell for like thousands of dollars, but I have sold them for free. I have sold them for $150. I have done this, but the reason I did this was because I wasn't confident. I was desperate, and I would say, yes, no problem. I will do this, whatever it takes, with my patented Indian head nod, and I would go ahead and deliver, right? That's okay. I'm owning up to it because I've done this because of desperation. You don't need to do that, right? So think about how you want to approach that situation before you get in there. And then showcase your personality. Every now and then, I try to change my voice because that's what I do as a dungeon master in Dungeons and Dragons. But I also enjoy having fun and not being too serious. I also tend to like talk a lot, like what I'm doing right now, right? So that's there. And finally, the last thing I want to leave you with is to do things that don't scale. If something's hard, that probably means that there's somebody who cannot do it. Not somebody. There are like a bunch of people who cannot do it and a bunch of people who are not willing to do it. If you're the one who's going to be able to do it, if you're the one who's willing to do it, then do that because that's uncommon. And that uncommon stuff is what's super duper valuable. Okie dokie. With that, we have now reached the end of this workshop. I'm going to check in. All right. Any questions? Doesn't look like it. So no problemo. Okay. Well, a very quick summary, and then I'm going to get out of here. Fundamentals, we looked at what DMs are, how you can actually do them well, and why most people struggle with them. Then we looked at different ways of doing the DMs right, and we looked at the idea being not to sell, but to genuinely do a value exchange, right? Then we looked at, what is value? And there are like 4 types of value. We looked at that, and then we looked at the whole idea is to deposit goodwill so that you can withdraw it later, should you so choose. Then we looked at 7 different ways that you can avoid ickiness. And the heart of it was To thine own self be true, or Timet Nosce, as it was written in the Oracle's kitchen in the movie The Matrix. Also, 3 techniques. Seller versus seeker mode. So this is more like doing the mom test, the way Rob Fitzpatrick says, where you're trying to do a user interview. This is where you ask for a referral. Like, hey, I'm not trying to sell this to you, but do you know somebody else who might want this? And my friendship technique is, hey, I struggle at making friends, so I'm making this video. Can you please reply with a video and answer this one question that I've asked you for? That's my favorite technique. And then we looked at an action plan, like a set of steps that you can do. Make a list of people, filter them out, do the groundwork, craft the message, send it, and then continue the conversation. Now, I don't know when you're going to be seeing this, but the moment you've done, like, you've gone through this process and you've sent out like 10 DMs, let me know. All right. Come on over to, let's see if I can get this out. That URL, puttheplayerfirst.com/haven. That's where I hang out most of the time. And tell me, how did this go? All right. And of course, a bunch of tips out there as well. Do stuff that other people want to get results that other people don't get. Put in effort. Don't be desperate. Everybody can smell it, and showcase your personality. Okay, this was one long conversation, and what I'm going to do is say thank you. Thank you so much for being a part of this. This is the first time trying to do this sort of a workshop. I've also tried to record it on OBS because I don't know if this would actually work, but hey, let's see how this goes. Give me some feedback wherever you're seeing this, on Twitter, on Haven, on chat, wherever it is. Let me know, okay? Well, that's all I have for you today. So you have a great morning, evening, afternoon, super solstice, whatever. I'll see you later, man. This is Arvind from Put the Play First saying over and out.